You want to make a super special dinner and you want it to come out great. A whole beef tenderloin is a showstopper. It's tender. There's no like tendons or connective tissue in it. It's just a beautiful, tender, lean piece of meat with a mild flavor all of the way through. But it being that also creates a challenge because you want it to be evenly cooked. You want it to overcook. And this is a very easy cut of meat to overcook. So I'm going to show you how to prep it, how to get it on the Traeger, how to ensure an even temperature all of the way through. I'm going to show you step by step, and then we're going to slice into it and we're going to eat some. It's going to be great. I got this beautiful beef tenderloin at Costco. It's a prime tenderloin. It's peeled extreme. That means the chain has already been removed and it's been trimmed. Now we are going to prep our beef tenderloin the day before we actually want to cook it. So I'm going to get my little station here ready. All we need is salt, a knife for a little trimming, and some twine. The thicker, wider end of your tenderloin is known as the head, and then the thinner part that tapers down is the tail. I'm going to trim a couple inches of the tail off because it will overcook compared to the rest of the tenderloin. I will save that for later and cook it for my kids as steak bites or something. There's not a ton of fat on this at all. I'm just going to trim a little bit of the thicker fat before I season it up really well with salt on all sides. Next, we're going to truss our beef tenderloin with some butcher's twine, and you can do this the fun way or you can do it the simple way. This first method takes a really long piece of string and continues to make loops that wrap around. The other option is to just lay out 6 to 7 pieces of string and tie each one off individually and then trim the end. I prefer using just one long string because I do think it's a little bit quicker. And I'm going to link to an old Martha Stewart video down in the description so you can figure this out. That's how I learned. After your tenderloin is tied off, you can transfer it to a sheet pan that's lined with a wire rack. You're going to pop that in the fridge and it's going to sit like this uncovered overnight. Okay, now it's the fun part. It's time to actually cook. We did a good job of seasoning it and letting it dry brine in the refrigerator uncovered overnight. I took this out in advance so that it can come up to room temperature to make sure that it's even when it starts out there on our Traeger that is preheating at 425 degrees. I like to rub my beef with a little avocado oil. That's going to help the sear in the crust when we get it outside. It's also going to help my spice blend stick. So I'm using my favorite beef seasoning combination. It has granulated garlic, onion powder, smoked paprika, and black pepper. Since this is about 4.5 pounds of beef, go ahead and be generous. We want it to be seasoned all the way around. I'm keeping this really simple this time. I'm not doing anything like a reverse sear or any of that stuff. We're just going to get this beef tenderloin directly on the grill grates at 425. We're going to insert our temperature probe that connects to my Traeger to let me know exactly when I hit my temperature. Okay, so it's in there. I have my thermometer in the thickest part of the tenderloin. I have the thickest part of the tenderloin on the hottest side of my Traeger. One side definitely does run higher temperature when I'm using that high heat versus a low heat, and it stays a little more even. 125 is what I have the probe set to let me know to go off. I'm going to let it go to maybe 127, but that is going to get a perfect medium all of the way through from one end to one end. So let's see how long this takes. At about the 10-minute mark, we're at an internal temperature of 88 degrees. We are going to flip the tenderloin to make sure we get some nice grill marks on all sides. It took 25 minutes to reach my internal temperature. I could have pulled it off at 127, but I got to 128. That's fine. We are going to wrap it with foil and let it rest for a long time before we slice into it. This is going to make a massive difference with the moisture, and that carryover cooking is also going to finish it off and get it to just the right warm pink all the way through with no bright red. Okay, here's the rundown. It cooked for 24 minutes at 425. I flipped it a couple times to get a nice even color on the outside. I pulled it at a temperature of 128 degrees, and it's been resting in foil for 15 minutes. Let's slice into it and see how it looks. Now for the moment of truth to find out if we have a nice temperature all of the way through. You're going to get rid of the foil, get rid of the string, and you can start slicing. You can go maybe an inch thick, or you cut it bigger, like individual steak portions. The temperature on this beef tenderloin came out exactly the way I wanted it. It's a nice pink all of the way through. So let's recap. We seasoned it the day before. We tied it off to maintain a nice shape. We took it out of the refrigerator about 25 minutes in advance before we got it on the grill. Then we let it take a nice long rest before we sliced into it. Those juices redistribute, the carryover cooking finishes off, and we're good to go. I could not be more pleased. I hope that this helps you. So what I am going to do, of course, is show you real quick how I'm going to serve it. I'm going to take a bite if I find a fork. Check. So I think this is how I am going to serve my steak at Christmas, because it looks like a little meat wreath, right? If you're not eating a meat wreath, what are you even doing? Okay, so right here in my sauce, I have some shallots cooked in brown butter. It's a 2-ingredient steak sauce. That video is coming along within days. I'm gonna put some of my brown butter sauce on the steak and some of the brown butter sauce on my broccoli. Broccoli, mashed potatoes. I'm gonna hit my steak with just a pinch more of salt. Look at that. This is my husband's favorite dinner. Okay. Super tender, as promised by the tenderloin. $125 to $128 is hands down my perfect temperature. I would have pulled it off sooner if I wasn't trying to get my camera outside. So, lesson learned. Definitely in that zone. I've got some beautiful cuts, and this was off the end of the thin end. Dynamite. If you want to make a perfect beef tenderloin out on your Traeger grill and you need the recipe card, that is in the description below. Grab that link, you can get the recipe card, just reminders of the temps and times, or you go ahead and you write down these things. 425 degrees, 24 to 25 minutes, internal temperature of 125 to 127 degrees, and you're gonna crush it. Come back and see me some more. I've got more holiday stuff going on. We're gonna do this steak sauce, a great tenderloin, everything you need. So subscribe so then you find out when I have new videos coming out. And I'll see you again soon.